In the heating and cooling system, cooling-based offenses are considered especially heinous. In Katy, Texas, the dedicated HVAC contractor who investigates these improperly cooled structures is the creator of an elite AC service squad known as the Sweaty Victims Unit. These are his stories.
Hi, my name is Ray Austin with Austin Air Company. I'm a Texas licensed HVAC contractor serving Katy, Texas area. Today's topic is going to be air conditioning inverters. I'm going to explain what these are. Fairly new to my market. You got to take into consideration that HVAC is a localized type subject due to climate concerns. My climate in the Katy, Texas area is typically 9 to 10 months worth of running the air conditioner to various degrees. And humidity, it's a very humid climate. And so you have to take into consideration these things, depending on how you found this video, because this video will also be posted on my video blog on my website. But if you found this by just, random luck on YouTube, just realize that this is a climate type product where there's certain climates that this would be overkill for, and so you've got to keep that into consideration. But anyways, I'm going to take you on some recent inverter installs that I've installed for various customers. I'm going to explain what an inverter is, and I'm also going to show you my results on my energy bill. Essentially, when you upgrade to an inverter, you can basically cut your electric bill by up to 50%. In other words, you're going to cut your electric bill in half. Now, there's some other complications along those lines. It depends on the size of the house, how many pieces of equipment you have, and so on. So we're going to dive into this, and maybe it's for you, maybe it's not. Stay tuned. We're going to dive right into
The
this.
home of better. Welcome home. High electric bills. And so this is a topic that is basically geared for my website because this is a prevalent problem for the area that I service. You got to realize that heating and air conditioning is different, has different concerns for different climates. My climate is an exceptionally hot climate in which we're running the air conditioner upwards of 10 months out of the year.
You see here we have high humidity, we have lower humidity, temperature is continually changing. This is a demonstration that I show of what a traditional air conditioner, the amp draw of the outside condenser, what it draws in power when it's running. These are usually single stage air conditioners that turn on or off. There are no additional speeds, it's either on or off, and so you don't get any cooling when they're in the off position. Now this new technology is basically what is called an inverter.
That is the total amps for the unit. That includes the fan motor and the compressor. And so, you know, the previous unit was running about 17, 18 amps. So that's considerably different. It's starting to ramp up now because I'm getting ready to check the refrigerant charge on it and get the refrigerant charge set up. So we're ramping up now. It's going into more or less full ramp on
now.
Cooling
I know, you know, when I say inverter, you're gonna there's probably going to be a number of people that get a puzzled look on their face, and that's normal because this is very new equipment. You see here the amp draw of the unit running is roughly 25% when it's running in a slow speed, roughly 25% of what a traditional air conditioner is going to run at. And so that is how savings are achieved. And typically what I see is about a 50% reduction in utility consumption. You know, and in terms of how this plays out via your electric bill, one thing to note is that I'm going to show you what my savings are at my house because I actually installed an inverter at my house back in October of 2019. And so that's what this video is going to be about. And also I'm going to be showing what some of these installs I've done over the past little over a year now of various inverter installs, and just realize that climate concerns are different for different people, and so not everybody will want one of these. You know, the advantages is that it does a better job of removing humidity, and it lowers your electric consumption. And so I feel it's good in that you can recoup the cost because, you know, if you're replacing an air conditioner anyway, it's really not a bad idea to consider a more energy efficient option. And just realize that, you know, because our climate is so humid that if I reduce humidity in your home a mere 5%, you're going to be that much more comfortable than just controlling temperature up or down alone. Humidity plays an important role, more so important than what people imagine. The other thing is that this unit, when it runs typically in the lower speed settings. And so when it runs in that lower speed setting, it's very quiet. And so if you've got the unit located out on a patio somewhere, it's a very quiet running option, much quieter than a traditional AC. And so some people will say, oh, well, you know, what's the difference in cost between a two stage? And the issue with two stage for our climate is that oftentimes in the shoulder seasons, they're still oversized, even when they're running in first stage. Those were all the rage here several years ago. And so, and the issue has been is that, you know, they overcool. You know, you have to overcool the building And you will to a certain extent when you're running the inverter, but it's a much better option. I mean, it just does a better amount of dehumidification when it's in the cooler part of the season. Usually in the shoulder seasons like March and April, October, November, those time periods, it does a much better job of making you comfortable with less overcooling. You'll have some overcooling because it still runs via temperature settings on a thermostat. And so this is a particular unit. This unit was installed at my house, and my house is was built back in like 1978, and so I was forced. Well, I wasn't forced, but I wanted to do it right, and so I replaced the line set going in because the line set that was in there previously really wasn't very good installed. It was just problematic. The sizes were mismatched, and so I wanted everything sized appropriately. And so that's why you'll see the line set cover going up into the house here as I shift back. And so some advantages to this, you can see the amp draw when it's running at slow mode, it's very low. I mean, that's ridiculous, 3 amps, and that's compressor plus the fan motor. And so I believe the other unit that I had in there was pulling probably somewhere around 18, 19 amps. And the unit that I had in there before was rated as a 14 SEER. And so if you stick to this video, I'll be showing you what my personal reduction was in utility usage from using a 14 SEER traditional AC. And I'll also include a link down in the description to where you can go to my blog post where I show other utility bills and such. Because I really wanted to dedicate this video more towards telling what an inverter is and showing you, because it's completely different. And you got to realize all manufacturers make inverters, but inverters are typically high rung, high tier cost. And so this particular model does things a little bit differently. I'm not going to go into too much detail there because I'm not here to show you how to do it. I'm here to sell it to you so I can do it for you. So it does not pay you. I mean, if you do not have the experience and the skill to do this, it's foolhardy. You're likely going to have trouble with it. So I do not recommend, if you've got this notion where you're going to do this yourself, I strongly discourage you from doing that. This is another long-time customer of mine in which I installed an inverter. Now, there's been some changes from the inverter that I had installed at my house to this one. This is the rated, because you see the difference in color. It's kind of a grayish color. This is a 2.0 version. My version was actually a little bit less efficient. This 2.0 version, which is what they're carrying now, is slightly more energy efficient. And so there's very little doubt in my mind that you're going to see, if you've only got one AC and you do one inverter, you're going to see a reduction in usage of somewhere around 50%. It's going to fluctuate depending on how hot it is, but over the course of a year, if you compare your old AC bill, the usage part, to what the inverter is, you'll see easily 50% reductions. I mean, that's typically what I hear from previous customers telling me that they've noted a pretty good drop in energy usage. And in terms of monetary wise, there's a lot of sometimes hoops to jump through because our energy here in Texas is deregulated. And but I can give you pointers as to what to look for. Just a little bit of knowledge, and you'll be fine. You'll be able to make wiser decisions, when you choose an energy provider for your house. Just realize those contracts change every year depending on how your contract is set up. If you're on a 2-year contract or if you're on a 3-year contract or a 1-year contract or whatever. And I'm going to go further into explaining that. This is yet another job that I did. This particular unit is a 2-speed air conditioner. You can see it's an air conditioner 16. That 16 refers to the SEER rating. And so it was, really good energy efficient unit. But the problem that this customer was having was too much humidity, even with the two-stage condenser. And so we discussed options of going back with a whole home dehumidifier. And the problem with the whole home dehumidifier is, number one, it's going to take up more room in the attic. And he was kind of tight on space up in the attic. And then you've got the cost of running the dehumidifier, and that can add to your light bill in order to reduce the humidity in the home. And so this basically was a better way forward, because you're going to reduce, instead of increasing your energy bill, you're actually going to reduce your energy bill.
Running this drain like a
because
boss.
of the way this thing runs. Now you can see here it's fully ramped up. When I did this particular job, it was hot. It was hot that day when I installed this. So that's why it's ramped up. And so typically, when it's ramped up, it's running like a normal air conditioner. But once it hits its target, it will start ramping down, and that's when the magic happens.
She's rocking.
Is that once it reaches temp inside, then it starts leveling down, and it will run at a slower speed. And obviously, there's some people that are concerned that, because this is high tech, and so there's always going to be concern about being able to get parts and so on and so forth. But currently, I haven't had any issues. I haven't had any need to get parts. These have been quite reliable. I really haven't had any issues with them. And so, obviously, proper installation is required. If you don't install it properly, you can't really expect it to work. And because I do all my own installs, I dot all my I's and cross all my T's. If problems do crop up from time to time. I'm going to show you a problem that I ran into. It's coming up right here. It's probably not what you're going to expect, in terms of a problem. But, problems do crop up. I mean, it's not that common that I don't run into some sort of problem. And so in this situation, the problem was that they bolted the old unit to a slab, and I could not get the unit out. The bolts were rusted, and so I had to take this approach, more or less, to cut the thing out of there with my torch. And so sometimes, these complicated problems crop up. And so it isn't always problems with equipment.
Yeah, I didn't want nobody stealing that sucker. Bolted that sucker like a son of a gun.
And so this install, I also replaced the coil. If you want to see what happened with this coil, because I suspect there was a leak there, but I didn't really identify it. So stay tuned to upcoming video, because this coil is likely going to be in it.
Fixing to check the charge on it because we're ramping it up. So we got a few minutes to kill, so I figured I'd shoot some video.
Yeah, slick looking inverter.
It's not your father's AC, I can tell you that much.
running full ramped. So that's as noisy as it'll get. Most of the time it'll run much slower than that, but it's kind of toasty out.
Really not too bad of an install here. There was a few problems, but the biggest problem was the unit being bolted to the slab. But outside of that, it was really a pretty smooth install. Of course, I plan all my installs, and because I do the work, there's usually very little that can go wrong. Yeah. I've been doing this a long time. I've been doing this longer than some of you have been alive. So, I know all the gotchas. And like I say, this particular equipment, isn't going to be for everybody. If you're looking to sell the house soon, or, other situations, then, this is probably not going to fit the bill. But, if you're looking to keep your house and you're looking to cut your utility usage and you want a better cooling, you wanting better comfort, this is the best thing since sliced bread. And this only came to our market just recently. So this is very new. So, we're going to find out, if it stands up. But part of the reason why I chose this brand is that I feel it's a good brand. I've been impressed with their tools. How inverters work. Essentially, how this particular unit works is you have incoming alternating current of around 240, 250 volts. And it then enters a rectifier, which is converted to DC or direct current, which then from there it enters an inverter, which converts it back to AC. But now they can manipulate that AC current and control it via the Hertz rating. And so essentially the speeds in which it runs is essentially the Hertz rating of the alternating current that they're controlling. And this is what ramps the motors up and down, and then they use other controls to tell the compressor what to do. Essentially, this is how it operates. Now, if you want a more in-depth explanation as to how this works, I'm going to leave a link in the description, and that link will take you to a place where it discusses the various different forms of inverters and how they operate. That's essentially how it works. Electric bill comparison. This was the August bill 2018 compared to 2020, 1778 kilowatt hours versus 1051 kilowatt hours. And so the next month, September bill, 1274 kilowatt hours versus 702 kilowatt hours. Pricing is something that I'm going to cover here coming up, so stay tuned to that because it can fluctuate. Here is October bill, 824 kilowatt hours versus 475 kilowatt hours. And so some interesting things have occurred with my particular dilemma is that I re-signed up. You'll see that my overall bill for this particular month was very low. Kilowatt hours remain pretty similar to what I normally experience. Same thing occurred in April 2021. Just realize that this is another way that you can lower your light bill is that you can get a cheaper rate. But I'm having to re-sign up because this was a teaser rate, and so my rate's going to go back up over 9 cents a kilowatt hour. So this graphic shows my results, my savings from when I had the 14 SEER 10-year-old or so one-speed AC from 2018. I had a total usage of 10,948 kilowatt hours. And when I converted over to the inverter in late 2019, I started recording my usage in 2020, and I came up with a total of 5,772. Now realize I used the AC seasons of roughly 9-10 months, and so the difference in those tallies is 5,176 kilowatt hours. And so if I have a rate of, say I'm paying a rate of 10 cents a kilowatt hour, my savings is $517.60 over the course of 1 year. And so you take that 1 year of $517 and multiply it by about 15 years, and that gives you your total expected life savings. Now, potentially, it could be more, it could be less. It really just depends how efficient your current system is, because if your system is less than 14 years, say it's older than 10 years, it's likely less efficient than what I had. And so your savings could actually be greater than what I showed here. And I wanted to show you, things like if you were to get a teaser electric rate, to show you, and that's what I showed in those previous examples for March and April of 2021 before this graphic. And so I wanted to point that out to you. Another thing is that the inverter AC provides much better comfort, which basically means I'm more comfortable than I was with the old single beater AC machine. And so, it really comes down to what's important to you, how long you're going to be staying in that house, because obviously, if you're not going to stay there, then you're basically doing the job for somebody else to enjoy it. And so you've got to keep that in mind too. But so I just thought I would show you that little tidbit, because that's essentially why you're doing it. Is you may be trying to look for ways to reduce your utility bill, and you could look at it, because there's people that'll say, oh well, I'll just put solar on, or the problem with solar is that you've got a much longer payback period. You're usually looking at probably somewhere in the realm of 20 to 25 years. And obviously, if you're at a higher usage rate, like maybe 2,000 kilowatt hours or more, maybe solar is the better way. Like say you've got a pool with a pool pump and so on. But the other common problem with solar is having the real estate necessary to put the solar panels in. And so that's the other issue. Solar is, complicated. And the payback periods tend to be much longer. And then if you go with a solar provider that just leases you the equipment for a reduction in your utility bill, then you create complications for when you try to go to sell the house.
So at a 31 speed, compressor speed, fan is running probably about mid-speed. And so this is total amps of the unit, 4.57. This is configured as a 5-ton condensing unit. So there is no 5-ton condenser that's going to pull only 4.5 amps, if it's running, So that's where you gain the efficiency. So that's it. She's back in service. Other than the wasps, didn't find any problems with it, so everything looks good. 1 year down. See what happens in another year. So far, I'm pretty impressed. Yeah, they're gone now. So that concludes the topic, what is an air conditioning inverter? I hope you've gained some important information from this video, and you've increased your knowledge and understanding of what an inverter is. Just realize that this changes the game. Traditional air conditioners typically are either on or off. And so the advantage in modulating the compressor up and down, the Hertz rating, which is essentially how this thing operates, the Hertz rating is ramped up and down, and that's what controls the speed of the compressor. There's more controls, in there telling the compressor what to do, because under certain conditions, if it's hotter outside, it needs to know that it needs to ramp up in order to maintain the load. Typically, these are more along the lines of what's considered a load matching machine. One thing to realize is that air conditioners are sized for the maximum load on a structure. And the problem with that is that the maximum load is only on the structure for roughly 3 to 4 hours a day. Usually in our area, it's between 3 p.m. and about 7 p.m. Under a dire heat wave, it might be 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. And so you've got to keep this into consideration. And a traditional air conditioner, there will be some dehumidification when the unit is running. But the problem is that 9 times out of 10, it's overcooling more than it's dehumidifying, because its primary purpose is to drop the temperature of the structure. It isn't dehumidification. And so when you get into the inverter realm, it better dehumidifies, because now the unit is going to run longer at these cooler parts of the day. If you're at 9, 10 o'clock in the morning, noon, whatever, and the unit kicks on, it's going to run much longer than a traditional air conditioner. And so if the unit is running, you're getting dehumidification. And so that's primarily the benefit for a hot, humid climate like Katy, Texas, is that the unit is going to dehumidify much better. You still don't get control of humidity, but because it is still run via temperature. But with that said, all I have to do is drop humidity levels in your house a mere 5 degrees, and you're going to feel that much more comfortable. The other benefit is less noise, and it's going to reduce your utility bill by up to 50%. And so if you live in the Katy, Texas area, you can give me a call at 832-475-6895. Or for more information, you can always visit me on my main website at www.austinairco.com. For Austin Air Company, my name's Ray Austin, and I hope your day is comfortable. Thank you.
Surely it's so hot you could dip me in butter and call me honey. But please, don't call me Shirley.